reaching way back, trying to change the time, tearing up the laws just to see me confined. Memories fade, but the pain still stays. They don't care about the rules, they just want me to pay. A sentence too heavy, a verdict too cold, breaking all the limits while the story unfolds. Where's the justice now? Yeah, law don't care and the courts alive. Taking freedom like a thief in the night, fighting for my soul, but they dim my light. Either where's the justice now? When the truth get lost and the lies so loud. But I must stand tall even when they deny, 'cause a man's still a man in the Father's eyes. Statutes written, made to hold the line, but they cross them out like they don't worth a dime. 20 years heavy for a crime time bar. How you call it justice when the system's so scarred? This ain't just me, it could be you one day, when they move the goalposts and take your rights away. A story of a brother they refuse to defend, but the fight ain't over, this ain't the end. Where's the justice now? When the law don't care and the courts allow. Taking freedom like a thief in the night, fighting for my soul, but they dim my light. Where's the justice now? When the truth get lost and the lies so loud. But I must stand tall even when they deny, 'cause a man's still a man in the Father's eyes. I believe that the truth gon' rise. They can change my body, but my spirit still flies. Appeals won't stop me, my name won't fade. Legends live on through the storms they made. Where's the justice now? When the law don't care and the courts allow. Taking freedom like a thief in the night, fighting for my soul, but they dim my light. Where's the justice now? To God be all the glory. To God be all of the glory. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Lord, give us this day our daily bread and forgive us our trespass as we forgive those who have trespassed against us. Lord, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thou you are the kingdom, the power, and all the glory, forever and ever. Amen. I just wanted to just come real quickly this morning to talk about this because it was on my mind, it was on my heart yesterday, but it was just so much more stuff going on yesterday that I didn't really get to come back and talk about. Um, Having to contribute to R. Kelly for his work and to honor his work for what he has brought to the industry. You know, I was listening to this Changing Faces girls, Sharice and Cassandra, and I was also, doing my reflections on them in the 90s, that duo group, and how they had it out of all those women groups. And not saying all the other women groups didn't matter of what they had to endure as they went through those 90s moments of female groups, and how this group was so overlooked. And the only artist, only writing and person that was able to take a shot and work with them and to bring them two great albums. Probably did more than that, I don't know. But the only two that I really recognize throughout their career that they really, really went I mean, not, I wouldn't say platinum, but they stayed in the charts with, is when they did the album Changing Faces, and they Stroke Me Up album, and then Get Out. Those two albums and those songs that they worked with R. Kelly with, those are classic. Classic. They Though when R. Kelly took the shot to work with those girls, Sharice and Cassandra, they were young. They were only like 17 when they first came out. R. Kelly wasn't that old either. You got to remember, R. Kelly was only like, what, 21, 22, 23. He was very young too. He might, and I don't even think they started out, they probably was 17, but they were probably older when they started working with him. That's what I'm saying. Because they was out for a long time before they were recognized by him. But I'm gonna let them tell you the story. Cassandra, they could tell you the story how things went. But other men started pounding at them. You know, other whatever groups and everything. But the only one that stood out the most for them, and I think that really they felt comfortable with, was R. Kelly. Even Prince was coming for them. Prince was a fan. Prince was like, "Look, who are they? You know, where they came from? You know, these girls got some powerful vocals, and they came with a different image. And the reason I think the industry gave them a hard time because they try to keep their image more clean. They didn't keep they didn't have an image that was too provocative. Their image was very clean, and I think that's what they liked about them. So that's when I believe they started to, really start hating on R. Kelly, and they wanted to get him out of the way because most female groups that worked with R. Kelly during that time, that really worked with him, were women that really trusted him, and they didn't trust anybody. You saw Diddy out there. It was the bad boy. They were all trying to come for these women. I'm gonna let you see it, and that's how I know that R. Kelly was more protecting them than more trying to be a predator. And the ones who were the predators were those other labels out there. Prince, I wouldn't say Prince was. But then again, Prince was very freaky. He was very freaky. Okay. I think he was a lot more freaky than R. Kelly was. Prince was freaky because he had the Mary Jane girls. What's that girl name again? Vanity and all of them. Vanity, that girl group, and he had them doing some real. One of them, she ran to the door. She ain't never looked back to the industry. Rick James and him was fighting all the time because he stole. Rick James had the Mary Jane girls, but look at what R. Kelly had. He had changing faces, and they fit his image so well, so well, because that's who really R. Kelly is behind the music. He likes soft women. He like women that are, you know, strong in the Christian faith. You can tell he don't like sluts. He took a chance with Drea because he saw Drea read the Bible, so he probably just thought her dancing and everything probably was just performing. But other than that, that wasn't performing. She likes to act like, she likes to throw her little cootie cat around and, throw that booty around and her body around or whatever like that. But anyway, she tried to make it seem like R. Kelly wanted the divorce, but it was really truly her because of her behavior and her actions and the way she wasn't trying to be really a mother. She was just wanting to be in the limelight with him. And to me, Drea worked for the industry. She didn't work for R. Kelly, or she didn't work behind R. Kelly's work. She worked for the industry. If anybody that really would have brought R. Kelly out and made R. Kelly look good, I mean, he wouldn't have never got to this point of his life, would have been somebody from Changing Faces. Because those girls stayed strong in the face. They kept their image clean. They didn't never be out there looking slick. Now, it was only one song that they did a shoot in, and one of them got their legs cocked open a little bit or whatever. But one of them, she's a little bit more on the subtle side. And one of them, I think she went her own separate way, while Sharice, really her original partner. I don't know which one. I think it was Sharice, one of the other girls that was her original partner or something like that. So she brought the other girl in, which is her cousin, because they went separate ways. They'll tell you the story when you go along with the story and everything. But I truly believe R. Kelly should have stayed. I mean, he probably stayed with them, but then he wanted to get into all that other, men. He was still young. Y'all got to still remember when R. Kelly started out with his talent, his gift, and his music career and everything. He was very young. He was still a 20-year-old man. He really hasn't really been out there yet with women and all that fame he had at that young age. Of course, you're going to get a little wild. And that's when he came out with the 12 play and all the other freaky stuff and everything else. But he did draw the women to him, the men to him, and everything to him. But he was more for the ladies. Okay, every image that he came out with, the ladies were like, "Ooh, R. Kelly." And still now he's behind bars, and the women are still screaming for R. That's just him. That's just, if God just made you a certain way and built you a certain way, it's just gonna be that way. Can't nobody take away what God has given to you. And he's just the man that is built for that industry, especially for the ladies. Okay? Especially for the ladies. No matter how old he get, no matter if he go to jail, they still gonna be screaming and falling in love with a R. Kelly. Not saying that we gonna promote him to hit women or disrespect women. No, that right there, we don't. It's just the music that he brings us and the way he performs for us. We love our R. Kelly. He just knows how to bring that kind of energy. And he just knows how to talk to our hearts and keep us calm. Okay? Keep us calm. Do his music, the songs that he writes. It's just who he is, and that's who God made him to be. And he can't help it if women gonna fall in love with him, but they can't have all of him. He can't help that. It is just the way it is. But these women, Jay-Z was coming for them in the 90s. It was all kind of men coming for this group. They had to get out the way. Then it was a song that they did, and they was promised the song, and then they turned around and gave the song to Aaliyah. And I think that kind of probably pissed them off a little bit too. That why they gave it to Aaliyah. Aaliyah's a lot younger than they were, and I think they wanted to just like, bring her in because that was they set up to take R. Kelly down. You understand what I'm saying? They put Aaliyah and dangled Aaliyah to R. Kelly so that can destroy R. Kelly's career. Because right after Aaliyah came in, that was when all the scandals started. And even though it was other things they were trying to harm him with Susan Logan, with all her, the agency had set up this law firm called Susan Logan. Susan Logan and whoever, I forgot the name of the law firm, but that's when they started getting women to come in and targeted R. Kelly's career about, bringing against him sexual allegations and all these other things. That's what they did. They had the money to move the money to do the things that they did to destroy R. Kelly's career because R. Kelly was a man of faith. Not only was he a man of faith, but he also had his demons too. He had his weakness just like any other man, woman. They fall, women flaunt themselves around you. And sometimes they act like they want to actually be committed to you or do whatever, and they're gonna keep silent about it. But as soon as they little fragile heart get hurt, they gonna run with the dough. They gonna go for the bag. The woman, some of the parents, they set it up. These are one who should be in jail. Is those parents, and they wasn't held responsible or accountable for their actions. But let's listen to what Changing Faces got to say here. Now I'm gonna let this video play. This video is coming from Celeb Wheels, and they could tell you bits and pieces of their own story. Okay, and I know it's probably been edited a lot, but I'm just gonna let them share with you.
When it came time for the record to be released, instead of going right, they went left.
The 90s were a total vibe when it came to epic tunes. We had K.R. songwriting, next-level beats, and artists who could seriously bring it. It was a fierce scene, and only the real talent shone through. Think In Vogue's soulful energy, SWV's silky harmonies, and Changing Faces' classy yet sultry sound. Changing Faces was on fire with tracks like Stroke You Up and Fooling Around, thanks to their smooth vocals and the hottest producers in the game. But hold up, things didn't last forever. After dropping 3 KR albums in just 6 years, creative differences split them up. Drama. So what went down behind the scenes? Buckle up, because we're diving into the juicy details of their rise and fall. Let's get into it. Charisse Rose and Cassandra Lucas, 2 NYC gals from the iconic LaGuardia High School of Performing Arts, were destined for greatness. Cassandra spilled the tea to R&B Junkie Official about how they started with tiny gigs and auditions just to break in as backup singers. They landed a spot with Sybil, and that's when they had a light bulb moment. Let's start our own group. They roped in their friend Charnice Carter to be their manager, and the rest, as they say, is history. Here's the kicker. While most R&B crews were rolling with huge lineups, Changing Faces decided to keep it just the 2 of them. Total game changers. Even when labels were like, nah, men need more than 2 women to look at, Charisse and Cassandra just shrugged it off. They kept hustling, hit up college, and kept perfecting their skills. In 1993, Charisse and Cassandra landed a major break when they met Kenny Smooth Cornegay, the big guy at Spoiled Rotten Entertainment. He was also teaming up with Big Beat Atlantic Records and saw something special in them. The girls were so pumped, they even ended up belting out their tunes for exec Craig Coleman right on a street corner. Talk about making an impression. Their demo totally made waves and caught the eye of Robert Kelly, aka R. Kelly, who was just starting to blow up with his group Public Announcement. Even though they were total newbies, Charisse and Cassandra didn't back down. They shot their demo over to R. Kelly, and he was totally interested. Cassandra said it was such a crazy ride that the details are a bit of a blur. In no time, Charisse and Cassandra were flexing their songwriting chops on tons of tracks. But the real magic happened with R. Kelly, who was about to drop his solo album, 12 Play. They got to see firsthand just how insanely talented he was. However, things got a bit awkward in the studio. Cassandra told Madame Noir that for the intro to Stroke You Up, she had to whisper all seductive-like before the beat dropped. She kept cracking up and had to redo it like 8 times. Eventually, she got into the groove, and it helped her level up as an artist. R. Kelly cooked up 2 more bangers, Fooling Around and All Is Not Gone, while Devontae Swing added his signature keyboard vibes to Keep It Right There. Heavy D also jumped in to co-produce the upbeat track Baby Your Love. Their debut album, dropping in August 1994, went gold. Talk about hitting the jackpot. Then came the shocker. Their label told them that Prince was calling around, trying to figure out who the heck these Changing Faces girls were. Cassandra said that's when
I don't care what nobody say. Prince couldn't have even touched. I know a lot of Prince fans are out there, and I know a lot of y'all love y'all Prince. I wasn't never really a Prince fan, to be honest with you. When it was between Michael Jackson and Prince, even though Prince had the more talent, which was with musical gifts, but I still was with my Michael Jackson. I was with my Michael Jackson until Michael went so weird and started changing his skin color and started changing his nose and started more trying to look like a white boy and how he was getting. But I still loved my Michael. Okay? I didn't even care about the way he was starting to change his image on the outside. I still enjoyed his performance. Every time I looked at my Michael Jackson, I was like, oh my God, the Michael I knew growing up. But when he started getting all weird, I just like still hung in there with my Michael. I hung in there with my Michael all, and I'm going to say it like I say it. I hung in there with my Michael all the way till he took his last breath. I didn't care. Even during his death time, I did grieve that whole year for Michael Jackson. I cried. And my sister was a real diehard fan of Michael Jackson. And I even took a flight, and I was living in Florida at the time, but I took a flight all the way to New York just to be with my sister to grieve Michael Jackson and throw a Michael Jackson memorial party or whatever with her. That was some moment I had. I took a flight all the way to New York when Michael Jackson died just so we can all grieve and remember him when we were kids and how we used to all sing the little Michael Jackson songs, even in church. It's like, and my sister went through some stuff. She got kicked out the church because of Michael Jackson. The text was like, none of that demon. You know, people got to get real, okay? Teenagers are going to like who they like, idols or whatever, and sometimes it's just going to be for a lifetime. It's just going to be for a lifetime, not just for a season, but for a lifetime. And that's the way I feel about R. Kelly, not only because he's an artist, but because he could still relate to our childhood of growing up, even to the group Changing Faces, some of the things they shared about their time growing up and they talent shows, doing talent shows and things like that. That's what we did back in the days. We didn't do the crazy stuff these young people do today. We didn't have social media. We didn't do that. That was not how we were able to get a label or interest or somebody to hit us. They did talent shows in schools. They would participate. We saw the movie Sparkle. You know, this is how they started. They do little gigs here, little gig there. You know, we started off from the roots of the grassroots of music. We didn't start music listening to it on, people doing it auto music or any sort of nature. It was raw talent back then. It was just raw. And everything they did was just raw. So I can relate to that generation of music. I can't relate to this generation of music, even though their music is drowned out a lot with a lot of sound and everything else, where you don't really hear the words. You really could hear what they saying. In that time, you was close and personal with the artist. Teresa and them grew up in New York. I'm from New York. So I'm familiar with them. I ain't never see them like they said they were singing out there on the streets in the corners, but I could relate to with them saying like they were opening up for people, singing backgrounds for Sybil. How they were. Same thing with R. Kelly. He started, and people didn't even know he started out with a group called MGM. So they had to put him with another group. First, they wanted to put him with Guy, but they had Aaron Hall, and that would have just like took his shine. So they had to put him somewhere else. So they put him with Public Announcement to bring that group out. And they did some stuff on their own after R. Kelly too, or before R. Kelly. But R. Kelly really is the one who brought them out. They had to use him, then he went solo out on his own. And just like Cerise saying here, that how they started with their group and everything, people didn't wasn't interested in just two women. They wanted like a trio group. Because remember, Salt and Pepper was a duo, and they even broke it down that even groups like at the time, what is that name of that group again? They used to sing that song oh god, Sukiyaki. They used to sing Suki. They was a duo group. It was a lot of female duo group, and then there was solo groups like Evelyn Champagne King and all of them in the 80s or the 70s and the 80s. The 90s were looking more for trios, but then you had Zayn. Remember Zayn? Remember the other group called Brownstone? Brownstone was a trio. But anyway, back in the 90s, they were looking for more trio groups, but they stayed with they duo groups and they stayed connected in their family roots. Okay. They were like a family group and they wasn't letting nobody shake their faith. They just did what they had to do and they still standing strong and they still survived and they ain't got their name all caught up in all kind of trash and scandal. Cause I'm glad they stayed with R. Kelly. Cause if they would have went with any of these other groups, like they snatched these women from R. Kelly and they took over, look what happened to their lives. Aaliyah's dead. Okay. Who else worked with R. Kelly and they not doing too well? Look at what happened to Sparkle. She turned on R. Kelly, started getting all caught up in some lies about her niece with R. Kelly and all this other stuff. And guess where her career ended at? And I'm glad Cherise and Cassandra stayed away from the noise and the chaos and the rumors, and they just did their thing of singing and music and business, and that's it. They ain't get caught up in all that other stuff. And even if they did, don't even try to drag them into nothing now. Because the rest of them, Aaliyah's dead, and now Sparkle life, Aaliyah, even though Aaliyah didn't betray R. Kelly, but look, she was young, so they snatched her away from R. Kelly and they hooked her up with Jermaine Dupri or whatever his name is, and look at what happened to her life. And I'm glad these girls stayed with R. Kelly because they had the faith and they knew the assignment. They knew the doggone assignment. And that's why I said they should give a contribute to this man before he lie in his grave. And he should have a contribute from the music industry for all them who worked alongside. And they should be the ones to be in the host to reunite and do their thing on that stage. And that will be a great performance with changing faces and R. Kelly reunion. That will rock the music industry. Anyway, let's go.
Light bulb went off for them. They were on top of the world. They had finally proven those industry doubters totally wrong. They proved you didn't need to be all provocative to slay the charts. You just needed mad singing skills. Charisse and Cassandra were on fire, riding high on their debut album for a while. They even dropped a track, I Got Somebody Else, on the High School High soundtrack in '96. Fast forward to May 1997, and their follow-up album, All Day, All Night, hit the shelves. With epic jams like their cover of Cyndi Lauper's Time After Time, a collab with Jay-Z and R. Kelly's Get Out, which totally rocked the Billboard Hot 100, the album went gold in just a few months. They were on the road, and their songs kept popping up on movie soundtracks like Same Tempo.
Look how clean he kept them. He had them sexy but soft. You know what I'm saying? They wasn't out there just throwing everything out there to their audience. R. Kelly kept them sexy but soft.
On the Players Club and Do Little Things with Ivan Mathias for Dr. Dolittle. But then, things took a turn. Their third album, Visit Me, dropped in October 2000, with tracks like Visit Me and the romantic Come Over, produced by R. Kelly and Joe. Despite their best efforts, the album didn't make a splash. Cassandra spilled the tea to You Know I Got Soul, that Atlantic Records was overflowing with mega-talented artists like Aaliyah and Brandy. And sometimes, music just gets lost in the shuffle. To add insult to injury, their track Come Over barely got noticed when Visit Me was out. Then, after Aaliyah's tragic passing in August 2001, her version of Come Over was pulled from the archives and dropped as a single, making waves on the charts that Changing Faces missed out on.
So when is it over? Because I want.
Well, at that point, 2000, 2001, what happened was that's when we were unhappy with the record label.
So, after all the drama and empty promises, Changing Faces kinda disappeared from the scene. Cassandra spilled the tea to R&B Junkie Official about how she and Charisse weren't just growing apart creatively, they were also butting heads with their label. Apparently, the label made a ton of promises they never delivered on, leaving the duo seriously annoyed. In an interview with Doggy Diamonds TV, Cassandra admitted they hit rock bottom. The music biz was totally messing with their vibe, and their third album was just collecting dust with zero promo. It was a total disaster. So they decided to hit pause and went off the grid for a bit.
Remember, they were older than Aaliyah. They wanted to put Aaliyah in the spotlight because they thought, because see, Cassandra and Charisse's Cassandra, you got to remember, these women, they just wasn't just growing up without any faith. You understand what I'm saying? There was certain boundaries they had, and there was just certain things they just wasn't gonna put themselves out there to, to destroy their image with. So they could easily work with Aaliyah because she was younger, a couple of years younger than them. They probably was already like close to age with R. Kelly, like Sparkle was. So they wanted somebody that they can really, like do certain things, like throw sex appeals, sexy things to them. Because remember, R. Kelly kept even Aaliyah kind of like in a tomboy look. She was young, but he still kept her more looking with baggy clothes. And as a teenager, he kept her looking young. Okay, her age. He kept Aaliyah her age. He didn't, to get the young people, she was young. And so he was young too, but he was still a man. And Aaliyah, she came out, more when she first came out. Remember, she came out with the swoop around her eyes and everything. She used to wear the bandana, and she used to wear nothing but baggy pants and baggy like jerseys and stuff. And then all of a sudden, she had that little tomboy move to her. So R. Kelly kept her more tomboy and sexy. She was like a sexy little tomboy. And these girls were like sexy young ladies. You know what I'm saying? He kept their image of who they are behind their music. Aaliyah was still very young. And so these girls were still, even though they were growing up, but they grew up like church girls and sexy, and they had values and everything. So he kept that with them, but he gave them a little sex appeal too. And that's what the music industry didn't like. They wanted them to look like sluts, and I'm glad nobody like Diddy got a hold of them. Woo, thank you, Jesus. I'm so glad some of these men, and even Joe. And that's probably when it started feeling, because that's when the battle became between them and R. Kelly and Joe. And I think Joe wanted to work with them, but they wasn't for Joe. These women were built for R. Kelly. Point blank, period.
Flash forward to 2009, and guess what? Their track Crazy Love made a surprise appearance online. They teased a big comeback with a new album slated for spring 2012, but that never materialized. They did drop a single called Hate Love in 2013, but it didn't exactly set the charts ablaze. Charisse spilled the tea to Martier Johnson about how they were footing the bill for the single themselves. When it came to making a music video, she was like, "Nope, not sinking more cash into a song that's not popping." She tried to let Cassandra know, but things went ice cold between them. Charisse shot over a text saying, "Hit me up when you're ready to work together." But the vibe was definitely off. Meanwhile, Cassandra's been living her best life with her CRC music label and dropped a solo album called Long Way Home in 2019. During quarantine, she even tackled Harvard courses to stay busy. As for Charisse, she's been out there performing, but don't hold your breath for a reunion. They still call each other sisters. But Cassandra's made it clear that getting back together for new music is a no-go for now. It's wild how Changing Faces' story isn't a one-off. There are plenty of other R&B acts that had all the right ingredients but never quite hit the big time. It's like they all had the talent, the sound, and the look. But for one reason or another, they just didn't manage to stay in the spotlight. The music biz can be a tough game, and sometimes even the best just don't make it past their peak. Here are a few you might or might not have heard of. The saga of Allure highlights a recurring theme in the music industry, promising R&B acts that had the talent but didn't quite make it big. Allure, with their smooth vibes and Mariah Carey's backing, seemed poised for success. Yet despite a strong start with hits like Head Over Heels and high-profile collaborations, they ended up feeling left out of the limelight they once seemed destined for. It's a tough world out there in the R&B scene. Sometimes, even with the right ingredients, talent, connections, and a K-Lur debut, staying on top is a whole different ball game. Whether it's shifting industry trends or just bad luck, the music biz can be as unpredictable as it is.
Nah, God has a certain time and a certain season for everything, and that's the way I feel. They were meant for that time, okay? And that time was coming because it was getting too dark, too ugly, too evil, and too wicked. So God had to move them out of there, just like they had to move R. Kelly out of there, even though he was hanging in there, but it was starting to get, you seen when R. Kelly started changing. That's what I said. You see some of the music, his lyric, his mind started changing as he went along with the time, and how he was still trying to keep up by still making certain music for them, but the music was starting to become very, very dark. If you listen to Buffet, it was about maybe three songs I think I would have listened to on that album, but some of them was starting to sound a little too ratchet and too raunchy for me. So I got away from that. But then I came to his, then I was listening to even though I liked Black Panties. I will admit, I did like Black Panties. Okay? Black Panties, I liked it. It's something that you can have fun with, especially when you driving or you with your boyfriend, something privately having fun with. It's more like a private party between you and your partner. It's not a song you gonna play where you just gonna go anywhere and listen to it. There's just certain music that I'm just not gonna listen to at certain places. I would listen to it at home and in my private life with my husband, or that's how it's an intimate. It's a song that you want to have fun with and play and dress up and do those kind of things. That's R. Kelly's music. It's music that you can hardy to, and then there's some music you just want to stay behind closed doors with. That's just the way it is. Whichever one you want to get. Not everything is for everybody. And some of the songs are not for everybody, and it's not for to be played around children. It's to be played in your private time around adults. And that's what people don't seem to understand. Every song, you can't play it everywhere you go. There's just certain songs you ain't gonna play at the club. Okay, on certain clubs, dance clubs, a social club where you just go in to have a drink and meet people. Those dinner clubs like I used to go to back in the days. It used to be a place where you could dine at, and then it turned into a nice little, grown people, social club, a club. But then there you got places that just got those kind of places men go to be entertained with, the nudie bar. They used to call it the nudie bar back in the days, but now they call it the strip club and all of that. The women, they shut a lot of them down out here. I know a lot of them because women were turning up missing, women were being raped, women were being beaten. So a whole lot of things was starting to happen to women in those kind of places. See, when I was growing up, we didn't have a lot of places like that around us. If you wanted the place like that, you had to go down the 42nd Street in Times Square. You let a little in, and then it start to become much. And a lot of times you find out, a lot of times that women were getting beaten, raped, kidnapped, sex trafficking, and everything else happened in those places. And they started promoting it out here around a lot of young people. Now you see the problems we got in this world that we live in today. There's just some things that just don't need to become too popular. Okay? It just needs to stay where it needs to stay, underworld. Some things just need to stay in the underworld, not in the public, and not up in the society around the minds of young impressionable people. And that's what happened. Like we going through this story now with Ashley Janae. There are just certain things that women should be careful about how they show their bodies and where places they travel, the dates they meet. Get a second. Like, I'm glad that Joe Button was one of the people before this happened to her. And I think she would have been probably safer around somebody who should have, hooked up with Joe and say, Joe, I'm going to Zanzibar, whatever. Get her team together, her entourage, and just brought people out there just in case, this dude wasn't trustworthy enough. Like had a big brother look over, because I don't think she have any brothers. And maybe that was Joe was probably trying to connect with her to be that type of brother for her. Or she could have even got Kevin Gates, to keep her safe from around this dude. And I mean, I know people in her comment section was saying stuff, but she didn't know them. But I'm talking about people that were more, she knew, and that were more around her, like people like Kevin Gates, somebody like Kevin Gates, or somebody like even Joe Button. She kept brothers around her just in case this dude would have tried some crazy stuff. And taking her all the way to another place in the world, and her being a female, for her protection, to look out for her, whatever, for her protection. Don't just travel across the world with a man just because he seems like he loves you and he seems like he can he's trustworthy enough. But going that far to Africa was way over to another side of the world. And I remember an episode like that on Good Times when Thelma was only 17 years old or something like that. She was a young girl, and she met this, while she was in college, she met this African guy, and she started dating him, and her mother seen, and when the guy wanted to marry her and she was ready to accept his invitation, the mother was like, wait, hold on, Thelma. You know what I'm saying? Now these episodes came, it was a lot with Thelma when she was a young woman dating, and she was beautiful, her beauty and everything, how they protected her. When they sat down and her mother had that conversation. Sometimes your kids ain't gonna really always listen to you, but at least you said something to make them remember you said something. When that time comes, they would say, oh, my mother told me this. It would give you, you know, that wake up call. Okay, like a lot of things my mother said to me, now I'm starting to see it. You don't see it then, but they just telling you to protect you. Now, anyway, in that episode, Thelma mother was not accepting it, but her friend had to talk with her and let her go along with the dinner party and everything else so she can meet with Antumbe or whatever his African name was. So then finally the question came when he wanted to marry her and she wanted to be the only wife, and then he really found out that that's when she got the truth, because he was like, I don't know if I could always make you, my only wife, but one thing, you will be my first one. And then the mother, and she was like, wait, hold up. Okay. That's when Thelma walked away from it, because then she realized that she wasn't going to be the only wife. She'll be the first wife, but she's still not going to get the marriage that she deserved as a one husband, one wife thing. So she had to walk away from that. So these are the questions that need to be asked. Like, I don't know if the father and the mother really got a chance to meet Joe, like really question Joe and to sit down and have dinner with Joe and do things with Joe to really understand if this man was truly right for they, especially with the age difference, the significance in the age difference. He was already an experienced man. He already had a family before. He already been married before. Questions like that ready to take your young innocent daughter somewhere. I wouldn't have never allowed a man to leave out of the country with my child unless I sit down and have that conversation. I do that with my sister. And she's a grown ass woman. She's me and her just about the same age. But there's just certain things I've been overprotective about with my sister. She don't like to hear it from me. She want to fight with me. She want to argue with me and everything. But I'm still the older sister, and I'm your sister, and I have to be concerned about you. I don't want you to just be running around here with boyfriends and husbands and this, that, the other. Like, I've always been overprotective over my sister. Even when my mother was gone, I took on that role as her mother, her sister, her friend, everything. I'm not gonna let my sister just run around with anybody without getting to know who they are or meeting this character. I remember we were roommates forever. Okay. And I said to my sister, like, we always been roommates. She was one of my, the longest roommate I had, put it that way. Throughout my life, that's all the roommates I need. I had other roommates outside my sister. I lived with other females that I had clash with, roommates that clash with friends and everything else. And they turned around and did some shady things. And, like I said, I had one roommate. She was wanting to bring in online dating partners, and that stuff was driving me crazy. I was scared because this is something we were in our 30s. I was in my 30s at the time. I had to downsize my life because I was living alone and I couldn't keep up with all the expenses of the household. So I had to move in with a roommate. I had to move in with somebody and to try to keep up with the household expenses. I had moved in with quite a few people, and living on your own is not easy. I couldn't save nothing. As soon as I paid the bill, it was over. I'm struggling. So those things were going on in my, even though you want the privacy, but still in all, you don't want the struggle like that. You didn't want the struggle like that. So living expenses and everything else is good to have a roommate when you starting out and you young. And I've been struggling ever since, put it that way. But anyway, like I said and everything, it's always good to have somebody else's opinion. And I think that Ashley, the kind of woman she was, the beauty she had, and the way she had that beautiful, great body she had, somebody, and it's too late for all of that now, but I'm just saying, just so it don't happen again and again and again, to give a warning, awareness to other women. If you're going to travel with somebody out of the country, especially if you like somebody like who Ashley was, somebody that was selling a model and you had great looks, a great body, and everything else like that. I don't care how great this man gonna sit and tell you he love you and you beautiful, blah 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 blah. But when you traveling out of the country, always have some male company along that you can trust and that are protective over you. Don't just go alone by yourself. Because this could have been avoided if she would at least got Joe Button. And I'm glad Joe Button was somebody that did check this dude out, got to see him, and brought and made sure she came out to be at his function so he can get a look at who Joe was. But even he still didn't get a real good look at Joe because it wasn't that much time for him to get a good look at Joe. You know what I'm saying? But I'm glad he was able to get her to come out so he can, at least give us some things about her, who she was. And other people that we don't know that been around her in her circle, around her circle and everything. And her PR, her friend, she's a female and everything. But I really wish she would have had more people accompany her on that trip for her celebration, not just alone with him. It would have been somebody other than just him, other people other than him, like a whole vacation, like even like Shanquilla did. But I'm talking about people that could have protected her. Somebody that had some pride. So even if she had to hire somebody that's skilled in and prayed about it and everything, get covered in prayer, get covered with Jesus, get covered before you go to another foreign country, especially to Africa. Africa is a mystery place. It's a mystical place, and then on top of that, it's a place of wildlife and kingdom, and it's not developed. Is in a lot of places of Africa is very primitive. They're not developed because all Africa do is get robbed all the time. They let every white man come in there and just take, take, take. They don't even fight for their own dignity. They don't fight for their dignity. They just rather just surrender their dignity, they traditions and everything to the white man. That's why some black people got caught as slaves and brought to the United States of America, and they were sold as slaves. When you go so deep into the story, that's why I can't even want to identify, even though as much as I have as much African features as I want. I was born here in America. My mother was American. My father was American. My mother's mother, my father's mother. I don't know nothing about no Africa. But I do know now, as I'm growing up and I'm hearing the stories of how these migrants or immigrants or whatever they are come to the U.S., and I see who they are by how they act now, and so from what I'm seeing from the world over there now that we get to see inside of Africa and some of the behavior and some of the traditions that they have there that been going on for millions and millions of years. African people have always, the you know, harmed their own people. It's always been that way, where they just sell their souls to the white man, the Dutch. And from what I understand, he's Dutch. He's an American, but his ancestry is in his DNA. And they always been cruel to the dark skinned people from history. They get their ass wet, you know. They've been the cruelest white men on this earth. Okay, when you think about the European white Dutch people, look at all of them. They always like going to places like where the people there aren't that developed, and they can use their white privilege. They play on that, and Africa needs to wake the fuck up. Have letting every white skinned person come into your country, or any kind of person come into your country. They need to stay in their goddamn country and fight for their own goddamn country. And leave us the fuck alone. That's the way I feel. Because we all right, because we fight for ourselves over here. Y'all need to go over there and fight for yourselves and leave us the fuck alone. Okay? Because we don't need no more of y'all fucking problems. We had enough. What's holding us up is trying to stay connected to y'all. And we not connected to y'all. Fuck that. We've been disconnected for y'all over more than 200, more than 400 and something years. So anyway, y'all, I got to get myself together and dressed to get out of here. But I'll come back with y'all later. But like I wanted this video to go out saying, I wish when R. Kelly comes home, they give him a contribution of a celebration of his work and recognition of his work. And I want changing faces. I know Cassandra Cerise says don't hold your breath, but I'm saying on the sake of R. Kelly, and y'all grew up together in the 90s, I wish they could just come together for that moment. The girls from the group changing faces. I wish you could just let that stuff go. Prayers that y'all let whatever differences y'all have, keep it off out of the public, and keep it beyond among yourselves, and pray about it. Forgive each other for whatever might have been wrong, and y'all could just come together. Just bring that unity just on the stage together, and that love, because we need that. We need that today. We don't need no more division, no more chaos, no more drama, no more nothing. We need to come together in unity and with love like it always has been. Regardless of how we feel about each other behind the scene, but in the front of the public, we got to perform in a different way. So God bless you. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk with you all later, and be safe. Peace.